My name's Lucy Patterson, and I am one of the organisers of a thing called Science Hack Day in Berlin, which is a hackathon that brings together scientists, artists, developers, designers, and anyone who's enthusiastic about building weird little projects and experimenting with science.
I'm Robertina Sebjanic. I work as a freelance artist and researcher. Since last 5 years, I'm very devoted into submersing myself into the underwater situations, in the sense of working a lot with marine animals, intervening and working a lot with the hydrophones and recordings and soundscapes, but also to work in general more with conceptual ideas of ecological situations in the mostly water habitats, but also in general.
Well, my interest is generally in the idea of kind of playing with science and using scientific techniques and approaches outside of the context of an institution. So people, regular people, artists, developers, technology enthusiasts out in society doing sciencey things. But Robertina here is the real ocean expert.
Okay, sozusagen, yeah, that's very good, sozusagen. I do work a lot with marine stuff and so on, like in context of marine biology. That I will not repeat totally everything what Lucy said, but yeah, I also believe strongly that science should be much more open and accessible to whoever is interested into specific topics, especially in the time when there is lots of facts and fact-checking happening, plus also because there is lots of specialization happening in the science. So it's sometimes really hard to grasp and understand some very complex terminologies or situations. And then science communications, it's sometimes having a problem how to communicate that in the way that it's not too simplified, and because of simplification losing its own interest also, I think. So in this kind of way, I think that arts and science, when you work on this and when you combine it, I look more at this as a kind of I hope it's not much, but a cultural imperative is understanding also science through the culture, through the perspective of humanism. Because, till the late 19th century, the humanistical thought was one of the most leading one also in the scientific kind of communities, sociology and so on. This kind of concept of new modern science, it's quite fresh and new. So I think it's very important how we all understand it, grasp it, and also how to reflect and mirror the situation which are happening in the society, also through the scientific facts and vice versa. So I think all this is very connected. Biopolicy is very important issue, which I opened lots of possibilities now. But yeah, it's an important issue, and I think we should focus on it also a bit more. And that's why I really enjoy to be in this kind of interdisciplinary kind of collaborative process with my work, and also be part of different communities, which they are more hacking communities, I would say. As I'm part of Hackteria, which is international network, which is combining artists, scientists, everybody in different connections.
I'd say science is about trying to look further than your senses, your human senses can enable you to do. So we develop all of these techniques and this equipment to kind of look past the limits of our senses. And in science, you kind of gather hard data and kind of build up evidence and infer information, your findings from all of that data. I think art sometimes also is a way of processing the world. It's not trying to produce the same output necessarily. It's something else. It's more about extending your senses and your feelings and your kind of a different understanding of the world. Does that
It's really
okay?
nicely put. Amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You know, because like with development of different technology, we always have to also develop different protocols. Like in these kind of conventions, like Republicas or these kind of similar events, the people are we are all rethinking the ways, are the social media the best way of how we communicate? But we don't know how to communicate anymore without it, because you can't, you know, it's not only individual thing. You can't unplug. If you unplug out, you are isolated outside, but everybody else is still there. So it's kind of like this, how we are navigating our society also, and this is happening here. And if we combine this with with these kind of questions, how our privacy will be intervened by somebody else, like our granddaughters and grandsons, which we have been talking about the emails. You know, like we all love to read old letters which people did exchange 200 years ago, which was like one of the social media convention at that time from perspective from here. So there is always this question, but yeah, privacy starts to be a very important issue, how to work with it. I don't have any amazing answer to solve it like this. I think it will be going on for some while to find best solutions about it.
I think I would
Yeah.
maybe to add, I think what
people coming.
what we do with projects like Science Hack Day, and I think also in the art science way, is that you try to break out of the system that you're in. Hacking is about understanding the system and then trying to push past its limits. So I think when you do this kind of thing, you develop a mindset, or you try to develop a mindset of questioning the system that you're in, so being more aware of the behavior that you have and the assumptions that you have. There's a connection, trying to be more questioning, and think also kind of extrapolate into the future. What are the real implications of this? And that's something actually that art does in a science, like art science actually addresses in a really interesting way. A lot of art science is about kind of problematizing the technologies that we work with, the technologies that we have today, and kind of pushing them to an extreme future dystopia where to make us think about what they really mean.
Definitely, yes. And also, you know, to rethink how we are using them in this time, and why we will use this somehow. So I showed here, had kind of like audiovisual performance where I have different compositions from my recordings, which I did with hydrophones on different locations, mostly in Europe, in different shores of the seas and on the seas also. The core thought about the performance is actually performing with the underwater noise, which is present because of our human intervention into the seas and oceans. So what I'm saying is like all the boats or the industrial kind of progress which happened for the last 50 years very, very strongly is presented in this kind of sound stuff also, because sound in the waters it's behaving differently. It's not the same like we are used to, you know. It's like sound is one of the main basic communication sensors in the seas also for the animals. So with our human noise of boats and all the activities which are happening, we are making lots of distortion. And with this kind of performing slash showing it in a very poetic way in one sense, because people are many times very enthusiastic about, oh, beautiful underwater sounds, till they don't hear that it's very, very noisy, present and uncomfortable. Because I try to do compositions like this because I think it's important that that listener can enter into the sound, and when you're inside, then after some while it gets really strong also. But I really try that we get not only the scientific facts which I'm talking now, but also the emotional impact which sound has a lot, because it's very abstract form, you know. And lately sound also used a lot in science to describe stuff, you know, like gravitational waves and this kind of, you know, when because it is abstract, but it's still accurate also.
Yeah, you can really convey data using sound in a different way to like reading it off a page or like seeing some visualization. It's a much more intimate way of connecting with data in a way.
Definitely. And also like the workshop which we did today here at the Republica, it's like it's very simple. We built with people through piezos, like DIY piezo hydrophones. But what we try to bring them with this is also when you have this your own hydrophone, you go next to the water areas, you listen and you hear by yourself actual reality, what's happening in the seas.
Yeah.
And especially into touristical places, there is...
Yeah, it's a bit of a wake-up call to suddenly realize what's going on under the surface of the water. So it's like a very personal experience once again. Instead of like reading this in a newspaper or seeing a TV program about it, you can actually go out there and personally experience it. And it's much more immediate, it's much more powerful.
It's kind of helping with sensibilization, definitely. How to make people more sensible to these issues. Because, when you have so much... You see, noise pollution?
Noise pollution.
We're talking about it to be polluted totally. So, what I wanted to say? Sensibilization of the public. It's important because, through all these kind of articles, scientists did find this and that, and there is so much drama happening, and the war is there is a constant war all around this planet. And the war is like between us humans and the animals, So through our influence, there's lots of change happening. And
somehow we just don't really care. We
Yeah,
kind of
just-
care and we watch it and we feel bad and
watch
then
and
we
you
get
feel-
distracted.
Exactly, and then you get distracted by your own personal life,
Yeah.
and your own rituals or things which you have to do on daily basis. So to kind of step over these borders, it's sometimes nice to have these kind of workshops. And what I try with this project is not preach about this stuff, because ecological issues, it's really, it's hard to persuade people that something is happening that we don't experience by ourselves, So, with this experience, we see how something can change and why it's changing if we all put a bit of effort in.
I'm a biologist by training in molecular biology. And there are a lot of challenges inside academia. It can be an amazing thing to do, but there's a lot of practical problems inside academia that make it quite a hostile environment for some people. There's a lot of pressure. It's not so open to. For women it's very hard. For people from other backgrounds it can be a very hard place to make a career. So that means that it's a very certain kind of people who end up working inside academia with all the best of intentions. But I really think that this means that science should be something, it should be a common good, it should be something that's working for all of society. And if it's being carried out by a certain small sector of society, then it's naturally not going to be able to reflect the entirety of society. So I think it's really important that we try to open up science and make an exchange that goes in both directions, both coming from science out into the rest of the world, and also that the world and society can influence science and science is able to address problems that affect all of us. I care very deeply about opening science and doing it at a kind of eye-level way, so that I'd like to bring people together to share their expertise coming from both science and from outside of science, because everyone is an expert. If you just live in a certain place and you're aware of the problems of that place, then you're an expert in that. And your standpoint is equally valuable to to making the world a better place. So So I like making these events that bring people together and opening up these technologies. Opening up these technologies to make science more accessible to people outside of the scientific establishment, and that might be so that they have the tools to understand their environment better and understand the problems that they're facing. So artists who take that kind of those tools and that knowledge and create new cultural things that I really think science should be part of our culture. It's just, I think basically science needs to have a larger community, to be more diverse and to be open to all of society.
In the field which I'm in, art, science, technology, there's lots of issues which it's nice that they are also better discussed, I would say. And especially when you work for years on some of the topics or wider projects, which I do many times. For instance, I have one project already, 1 plus Hertz is the name. I was working with relationship between the jellyfish, its environment, or human impact on them, or fascination also, because they're one of the model organisms in biology. We use them a lot for they're one of the main issues of ecological kind of changes of the oceans, and there's lots of stories to unfold during showing that project. So I like to organize, next to performance or exhibition, also a symposium where I invite always scientists and artists and other cultural workers to have a discussion with public, also to open up these topics. So I could say that it's quite on the line of which you have been talking also, that it's bringing together and being also many times in this kind of more one-to-one or like smaller situations, because I think this kind of discussions are really, really important to bring.